Welcome IB Economics students to this video lecture today on PED or price elasticity of demand concerning PED's graphs and the applications of the price elasticity of demand. So as we all know by right now, price elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of consumer demand when there is a change in price, that of which is shown through the slope of the demand curve. And in this video, we're going to be going into some properties and the graphs of a PED and applications of PED. So firstly, we know that PED could be shown through this demand curve of a market equilibrium graph. So right here we have 4 examples of a PED. These 2 examples are mostly theoretical. These 2 examples are more practical. So firstly, let's look at the perfectly inelastic graph. So let's get some definitions. Perfectly inelastic means that price changes do not affect the demand for the product at all. Let's put at all in all caps, at all. And this is when PED equals 0. So when PED equals 0, price elasticity of demand is perfectly inelastic. Which means the changes in price do not affect the quantity demanded at all. Now, why is that? Let me give you an example. Let us insert a curve. Let's say this is the supply curve. Okay, let's make this a little thicker. This is the supply curve. When the price is shifted up or shifted downwards, the demand still remains at the same exact point. Okay, so therefore, when price elasticity of demand or PED is perfectly inelastic, then the prices of the good does not at all affect demand quantity for the good. Now, on the other hand, a perfectly elastic graph, okay, perfectly elastic means that price changes affects the demand for the product greatly, and any changes in the price will lead to 100% decrease in the quantity demanded. So when price changes, let's say if price changes from 1, 2, 3, 4, from 4 to 5, then the demand curve is no longer there. When the demand curve is no longer there, then that means there is 0 quantity demanded for the good at that price. Okay, so that would show that when a good is perfectly elastic, that means people will not buy the good once the good rises, and that people would all want to buy the good when the price of the good decreases. And that these 2 examples are highly theoretical and highly improbable to actually occur in real life. Therefore, considering real life examples such as these two is more important. So, what is an example of a highly inelastic good? Now, cigarettes is an example. If paper 2 or paper 1 asks you to explain, give examples of highly inelastic or highly price PED inelastic goods, then give cigarettes. Oil is also another highly priced inelastic good. Just imagine this. Just because the price of oil goes down a lot, does that mean you'll consume oil by a lot? Not really, right? Perhaps oil consumption will increase by a little bit. However, oil consumption, oil demand does not rise by a lot when the oil prices rises by or decreases or rises by a lot. Therefore, the PED graph of the demand curve is relatively steep. So the steeper the demand curve is, the more inelastic the good is. However, on the other hand, the less steep or the other smaller, smaller or the more close to 0 the slope of the demand curve is, then the more elastic the demand for the product is. Now let's give an example. We've given an example of cigarettes, that of which is highly inelastic. Now let's give another example of a good that is elastic. For example, candy bars. Because of the high quantities and a variety of different substitute goods, candy bars, candy bars may have a higher rate of price elasticity of demand, causing candy bars to be more elastic and prone to price changes. Now imagine this. You go to a local 7-Eleven, your gas station. There are two candy bars, let's say Mars and Sneakers. If the price of Sneakers increases, or Mars and Twix, if the price of Mars candy bars increase, then the demand for Mars candy bar would decrease by a lot, because there are a lot of other substitute goods, not just in candy bars, for example, Twix or Sneakers. There are also, candy, and they could choose gum and lollipops or whatever. So, and whatnot. So therefore, the price elasticity and elasticity of demand is highly, highly elastic, seeing as how the price changes in a good would directly and cause great changes in the quantity demanded for the good. Okay. So that is why, and looking at the example of cigarettes, or looking at the example of petrol or petroleum or oil, the price changes in oil does not affect the quantity demanded of oil as much, seeing as how when oil prices increase a lot, you do not cut back on oil consumption by a lot. Perhaps you'll cut back on some consumption, perhaps using public transportation a little bit more. However, the average commuter or the average manufacturer still has to use oil in order to, get to places. Therefore, oil is an example of a highly inelastic good. Another example is cigarettes. Now, why is cigarettes so inelastic? Now, obviously, because cigarettes are addictive, right? People get addicted to cigarettes, and when price changes occurs, then cigarettes do not have a great decrease in the quantity demanded. Now that we have known the graphs and what they mean, the question that you may have in your brain is why? Why is this important? And how does this influence the different sectors of and how does this influence the different sectors of the economy? So why is this important? Now, you can look at the importance of a PED for a good from different perspectives. From the government's perspective, you will want to levy taxes on more inelastic goods, because if you levy taxes on elastic goods, then people will just stop buying it. However, if you levy taxes on more inelastic goods, then people will still buy it, and the industry and the producers are not hurt as much. Now, we will be going into prices, taxes and subsidies into greater depth in the future. However, for now, all you need to know is that taxes will affect the prices of a good, causing the price of the good to either decrease or increase. Now, when there's an increase in a highly elastic good, then consumers will stop buying it. However, when there is a decrease or increase in the price of an elastic good, then people will stop buying the good, actually. So people will not stop buying the good. So that is the perspective of governments and taxes when it comes to the price elasticity of demand for a certain good. Now, it is also important to consider the perspective of the producers. Now, let's say you are a producer of cigarettes, okay? You own a cigarette or tobacco company. When you look at the price elasticity of demand and being relatively inelastic, you are incentivized to raise your prices as to maximize your profit, because at higher prices, although you lose some quantity demanded, but the price or the increase in your revenue will make up for the loss in quantity demanded. So therefore, when you are a firm producing goods that have highly inelastic goods, and you are incentivized to raise the prices to profit maximization. However, when you are owning, let's say, when you are owning let's say a candy bar business or a candy bar manufacturing business, that of which is highly elastic, that you are less incentivized to raise your price, seeing as how if you raise your price by just a bit, you will lose a lot of your competitive advantage and you will lose a lot of your demand, therefore reducing a lot of your income. So that is the importance and the application of the price elasticity of demand. I hope this video is helpful.